Right, to verify everybody that's here is for an item that's on the agenda and would here to speak on that item. If you're not, I need to fill out the form so I can make sure I call on everybody else. You guys are here for CSM. Yes. I know he's here for CSM. Jeff is here, but
Open cleaning equipment.
awesome, help us with equipment. All right, so we have nobody that needs fill out forms. All right, we can call the meeting to order at 6:30, and then Dan, if you can just note the roll. We need a motion for the approval of the minutes from May 1st, 2024 meeting.
Move approval.
Is there a second? Second. All right, any corrections? I wasn't here, so I don't have any. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes have been approved. There are no appearances here. There's no one on Zoom. And we can move on from that. If there's no unfinished business, item 6A is the discussion and consideration for the CSM for 4111 and 4113 Monona Drive. And Doug is here to help us present this. Now, first, this is a discussion and a consideration. Is that correct? Art?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. The request here this evening is for 4111 and 4113 Monona Drive, two currently vacant parcels just north of San Damiano on the drive there. Proposal is for a one lot CSM to combine these existing two lots, and the lot would be just over 20,500 square feet to the ordinary high water mark. The applicant that's here this evening as well, Jesse Miller is here representing the ownership, and he would like to construct apartments on the parcel, and that's sort of working through the plan commission as well. So as part of this, looking to combine the two lots, this came to the plan commission for a pre-hearing on July 22nd, and was coordinating dates when this will come back. But of course, we're looking for a recommendation from the Public Works Committee. Parcels are lots 7 and 8 of block 20 of the Lake Edge Park Plat and do not appear to have previously been subdivided. The zoning for the property is multifamily zoning district. That district does not specify standards in terms of lot size, but should be able to reasonably accommodate development, which would be the standard requirements there. Already mentioned the lot size. The frontage along Monona Drive is approximately 131 feet. And of course, it faces and fronts onto the drive. There's a 66-foot right of way there. And it appears at that point, the road is about 54 feet. There have been a few access discussions that have come up during the review process of this, mostly with the use itself. And of course, those would need to be considered as part of any proposal on the site as well. And one other thing to point out is that there is a 7-foot wide public sidewalk located within the lot. And the easement for that would need to remain as part of any. That's it. Thank you.
And do you have any information you want to share?
I did inform Doug, and I think he passed it on to Jesse that up in that end, it's City of Madison Water. And right now, there's a grinder station that services the vacant lot and I think the Litchfield property. So they'd have to have a formal connection to the sanitary sewer system. So that'd be the infrastructure that they'd have to take care of. So.
And then you're here for Jesse?
Yes, correct.
Do you have anything that you want to share with the community that Doug missed?
No, I think he said it quite well, actually.
All right. If there are questions that the applicant can answer, by all means, ask the way.
It's hard to get a handle on where that property exactly is. You don't see the signs for the address. Doesn't that include the water, side basin or?
It's just north of the.
It's just north of it.
Just north
Okay.
of Lake Edge Basin, it's the vacant properties right there.
Okay, so
That
that
just-
isn't
Correct.
correct. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I think many people didn't realize there were two parcels there.
Yeah.
I think most people probably presume that it's just one parcel.
Right.
Because I think it was a single owner that you got it from.
So we bought the 41 11 on the left-hand side in 1996, and that was a single-family home. And then at that point, we're talking about possibly building some, not apartments, condos at that point. Bought the property next to it with some advisement from one of the past members of Monona, and then applied for some plans and things just didn't go as we had planned.
Yes.
But there were 2 single-family homes on those 2 properties.
Any other questions that people have?
Any issue with us being able to get into the sub basin and stuff like that, but
I think clean out is from park side or the street side.
probably the street side.
Yeah, I think it's, we do not use any private property to access the basin, so it's.
We've had experience at least once. What's that, with the wall blew up?
Oh, yeah, that was a while ago. Yeah, that should not happen again. There's steel, the steel shoring was left in place and the wall was built around that, so. But it's all fixed in.
Any other questions? And because I know this comes up often at this group. Do you have key items that you want this group to consider when they're looking at CSMs? Because sometimes I think members of this group are like, okay, what specifically should we be looking at from this group? In comparison to plan, I know it comes up at least 3 different groups.
Yes.
So I think I've been trying to help clarify for people, what should they actually be looking at and commenting on? Do you have any recommendations for this group as it relates to CSMs in general, and then specifically to this CSM?
Usually before CSMs come to the committee, Doug and I meet up. He meets up with all relevant parties, staff members. I convey information, like in this particular case, I mentioned to Doug that, right now, there's a grinder station that services the properties. It's just sized for a few single family homes, so that would need to be upgraded, the water connection. Anything that's related to public works within the street right of way is where our area of concern is. Access points shouldn't be a problem for that lot. I think as it works its way through Doug's various committees and Rebecca reviews, they also review on behalf of Public Works. So, we give an initial comment, but then once it passes through and, gains momentum, that's when we really dial in with things that have to do within the street right of way, at least from a Public Works perspective.
All right.
So,
That might give some people comfort that you don't have to.
yeah,
We have Beer Buck here that's looking at some of those details in addition. So
I think when the CSMs come here, sometimes in the beginning of the part of the process, sometimes midway through. But Doug always passes on the Public Works staff comments. The engineers always have comments, and when there's a developers agreement, Bill Cole writes them into the agreement. It gets recorded at the Register of Deeds. So I think we're covered with the various processes that we have.
And Doug, I'm sure you're looking for some type of action, which is not a formal, are you looking for a formal motion?
I believe that it would be a motion recommended to city council for approval, please. It's the so choose.
One quick question, this is maybe a little bit wonky, but it's a tight space. And that stormwater feature is, let's face it, it's a pond. Are there easements or setback restrictions for bodies of water from public buildings or residential buildings like that are required?
So typically it depends on sort of the district itself. And now if there's a recorded easement, then that would of course be imposed on this property. I'm not aware of an easement, sort of a buffer or anything going onto the applicant's property. With the multifamily district, it's not, there are not sort of side yard setback standards or anything. If it was single family zoning, then there would be 7-foot side yard setbacks. The commission, and that's one of the challenges I have, is sort of separating out the CSM from the request, the apartment request, for example, in this case. The commission did sort of consider site circulation and that was coming up with sort of the use case a little bit more. And so it does come up with the CSM at least as to the usability of the lot, for example, making sure that it's wide enough or enough for it to be developable. So I think really it would come up with the land use application portion of that, and the commission definitely had comments and feedback on the initial plans as to how both interior and exterior circulation.
Speaking of the crossover, how about the setback from the meander line? I just happened to serve on that committee, so. Is this truly a buildable lot if you use the meander line?
Well, is it navigable water?
Well, not on the side yard, not on what would be considered the side yard, but the lake itself. I don't know, was the meander line on here? It's ordinary.
I think it was just the ordinary high watermark. I don't have it in front of me, but so with multifamily, it's typically the commission has sort of deferred in terms of the established building line. So the meander line you mentioned would be the single and two family zoning. For the multifamily, it's sort of they in some instances have looked at single family setbacks for that purpose for some guidance. But typically, my understanding with the multifamily is it's more to do with the sort of established building line. The single family property is just in the middle of this. And so making sure that it doesn't, extend out significantly beyond that is one of the considerations, and sort of position on the lot was definitely discussed as part of the use.
Good, I just want you to know, no, so you're going into it with right, because I don't want to see it zoning board of appeals. All right, other than that, looks like we're looking for a motion for approval or recommendation for to move forward with this.
So I make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, and it passes. Congrats. Thanks. Don't feel like you need to stay. You can leave if you want. I won't make it, but you can. Next item is 6D or B, which is discussion and consideration for CSM for WPS and Ingle Street vacation. Doug.
Thank you. So another CSM, this one I'm going to call the applicant surveyor forward because there's a lot going on here, but generally this is for the request is for the western portion of the WPS campus, as well as the Southtown Office Park that faces Bishop Drive. The remaining portion of Angle Street from Bishop onto the WPS property is also requested to be vacated as part of the project as well, and that was included in Exhibit A. The reason for this generally is for future development opportunities, including a future outdoor golf entertainment venue to the south, as well as development opportunities to the north. The boundaries of the proposed lots do accommodate the future development footprints as well as the stormwater needs as well. And so we can sort of go into the details there, but I think if I can forward to there forward to sort of run through the request.
Sure. You want me to come up here?
Yes.
So as he said, the project is located on where WPS currently is. West Broadway and Gishel Drive. The western portion, which was lots 1 and 2 of the CSM. There's proposed projects in that area right now, so. Basically, everything on lot 1 will be demoed in new construction. There'll be some reconfiguring of the WPS drive coming in to access lot 1 from the east. There will be access off Gishel Drive also to the west. As he said, Angle Street is proposed as being vacated and will be part of the lot 1 Gulf Entertainment site. Lot 2 for now, as far as I know, there aren't development plans for that, other than it's slated for future development. There's some parking currently on that lot that will be demolished. Lots 3 and 4, lot 3 had to be included because there's reconfiguration for the Gulf Entertainment site. Lot 4 had to be included there's just a little bit of land swap between those. Lot 4 will, as far as I know, remain as is. They're just, WPS is taking the access drive on their lot for lot 3. That is, to my knowledge, the only reason that lot 4 had to be included. It probably will come up, but there's an existing emergency access to get to lot 3. That is currently being worked out for new access, which sounds like that will not be a hang up at all, as far as I'm aware. That's pretty much it on the survey end of things.
And I can go into more detail on, so the street vacation, I've been talking with the city attorney in terms of that. We had spoken about this, having the exhibit prepared just so the Public Works Committee can see that. There are of course utilities beneath that, so there'll be discussion about that and sort of maintenance of easements and things like to that extent. But the city attorney has said that that's something that he can begin that process. It will be a city council action. There's notices, there's state statute requirements for that. I wanted to include it in here more as an informational at this point, I would say for the vacation. And of course, it is tied to the certified survey map. But I think the expectation would be that the street would not be vacated or the CSM could not proceed until the vacation took place. So there's sort of a sequencing of events to take place here. As far as the emergency access easement, or the agreement for that is for One City Schools, which is the sort of easternmost building there with the parcel with the multi-story parking. That was put in as part of their approvals from the CSM back in 2021. That was to allow both police vehicles or city vehicles, emergency police and fire to go across and sort of access those. But also the students of the school, if needed, to be able to evacuate the building and head west. So if you remember, as part of this, WPS put a couple barriers and cones and things like that to sort of divide off the campus as part of the sale to One City Schools. So it was maintaining that. The path that was put in that agreement was heading west along Engel onto Gishel. The new proposed path would head up WPS Drive instead to West Broadway. So the city attorney has reviewed that. It's sort of a multi-party agreement. At this point, it sounds like everybody's going to be in agreement, and that can be revised as well. And that document is referenced in this CSM.
And I'm correct that this will be vacated by resolution.
That's my
correct.
expectation.
I do support the vacation of Engel. When it becomes final, I'll need the final CSM. I have to submit that to the state so they can modify our street list. Again, this is a big one that staff has communicated with Doug, the developer's engineer on. There's a lot of infrastructure under this large parcel. They're aware of that, so I believe there's going to be some reconfiguration, some finalization, but where there is city infrastructure, there's going to have to be dedicated easements conveyed, to the city and recorded. I think staff is supportive of what's going on here. As part of our capital budget projects that we're going to get to later, there is a project related specifically for this development. So we'll touch on that when we talk about the capital budget. But otherwise, yeah, staff does. Right.
Any questions or concerns from the group?
Brian, I have a question. Sorry, I attempted to get to the raise hand. I just wasn't quite fast enough.
That's right.
So Dan, can you expand on what you just referenced around infrastructure on that western side that you're envisioning the developer needing to work around?
There's some stormwater infrastructure.
Okay.
That will need to be, reconfigured. There's I don't have the whole layout in front of me, but That's part of the review that developers go through
Sure,
with Doug's committee.
Yep.
In this case, Strand is working with the city on this one, as Becker is representing the developer.
absolutely.
So Strand will be reviewing all the infrastructure that's going to be proposed for altering as part of this project, but when it becomes final, everything has to be satisfactory to city specification and city standards.
Sure,
And then that will all, if there's obligations in the future, that will be outlined in the developers agreement. Bill Cole does a great job of making sure all those items are covered in that final agreement. And I believe that is recorded as well, right, Doug? Yes. So I guess that's where staff is at, Nancy. I don't know if I've answered your question, but hopefully I did.
sure, Dan, I just was, I didn't know if we were talking about items as significant as we had in the current development in terms of moving an entire main apparatus there, or if we were talking kind of the run-of-the-mill things, and, all of which, of course, we would expect to be on top on and work with a developer on, so.
Right, I think mainly it's the stormwater, addressing stormwater for the site. So.
Terrific, thank you.
All right, is someone willing to make a recommendation? Motion for the recommendation to council.
I'll motion to recommend.
All right, a second. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, that's passed, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. And we're gonna move on to 6C, which is discussion and consideration of a proposed parking restriction on Frenchland Place. Yeah. It's straightforward.
Yeah.
If you've been on the street, you'll know what it means.
Right, so why this is here, if you look on the backside of that draft resolution, you'll see some pictures of what we're kind of getting at. Pelletier, basically, if cars are parked there and that dead end's taken up, they cannot turn around, because they need to make the turnaround to collect the carts that are on the east side of Firstland. So if they can't turn around and they pulled in, then they have a dangerous backup and back out onto Atwood/Monona Drive. So there was, I think, probably collections that were missed for residents on Firstland because of parked vehicles. So all we're asking at this point is to establish no parking 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Fridays of each week. And that should address the collection issue for solid waste.
And just curiosity, our contract for collection gives the entire day 7 to 5 as an option.
Yes.
Just want to make sure. So we didn't go, why don't we just do it till noon? So, yeah, makes sense.
Curious, is that a hardship for anybody there to not park?
Well, they all have, I mean, there's driveways there.
Oh, yeah.
There is westbound parking along Watercrest condos. I think there's 3 or 4 spots there. But I think you might get an overflow parking down at the dead end.
Yeah.
Apparently the FedEx trucks and UPS trucks, things like that, they use driveways to back up in.
Oh,
The garbage truck, they don't want to use private property because then they're responsible for any damage
I
concrete.
suppose, yeah.
How does the trash from the Watercrest condos get out of it?
I have no idea, that's all private. I don't know where their dumpsters are.
I'd assume in their underground parking
Yeah.
garage, I guess, they have dumpsters that they wheel out.
Do you have an idea who picks them up? Just curious, because obviously they're getting a truck in and out of there somehow,
Right.
but now they can go up onto private property to accomplish that, right?
They're doing the backup onto the drive, which is possible to do it early enough.
Yeah.
They just pull in, dump it, and then back. No. I'd like to entertain it if someone would be willing to put a motion up
I'll move to.
for a second. Second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, all right. Now on to the final capital budget.
Okay, for tonight, I did ask Brad to be here. Brad will be managing several projects, in 2025, mainly stormwater, but there's a few others, that he's gonna be responsible for. And I've asked Jeff, Johnson to attend as well. He will be able to give some, background information on some of the equipment that we're asking for. Jeff, has firsthand knowledge and daily experience either with the equipment himself or with the staff who uses the equipment. So I thought it'd be good for Jeff to get some time in front of you all and help out with this fun presentation of the capital budget. So what I'm gonna do, you all have the draft budget in front of you. I'm going to cover the 2025 projects, when it comes to the direction of the mayor. They want for sure the first year snapshot and any carryover projects into year two, which would be 2026. We provide a 5-year capital budget to give a long-term outlook for committees and council. The committee that I mentioned is basically focused on 2025. I have it broken down into priority by general fund, water utility, storm, and sanitary sewer. The directive that I believe city council is going to be looking at is, I think, to trim it down to 3 million citywide. My job that I believe is to put everything out there in front of you. Make you aware of everything that we need to do. There's nothing on here that's a wish list. These are all things that need to be done. So I always ask that you support what we ask for it, because when we're done here, it goes to the mayor. She reviews it. She makes recommendations to city council on what to trim. Council debates it. If they want to put stuff back in, they do. If not, they leave it out and we push it back another year or somewhere, some other year down the line. So I have the sheets in the packet that some of you didn't get because the mail, I guess, didn't deliver until today or not yet. But if you have questions, please do let me know and I'll do the best to explain each item, but unless there's any questions right now, I'll get going with the general fund project.
Question, so that bottom line, 8.5 million, you're saying has to be trimmed down to 3?
That's city council's job.
Well, that 3 is actually would be citywide,
Yeah,
not just,
public.
not just public works.
welcome to the fun.
Tough job.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
right now, truly, like, it's important that this group support what they believe is needed and prioritize based on the window that we're looking at, which is public works only. And let
right.
others figure out the other stuff.
And if you feel, my column that I had for priority, if you feel there needs to be a rearranged, and then if that's the consensus of the committee, then we would include that in the recommendation to city council. We want to reprioritize some things, or if you want to take things out, that's up to you. But like I said, it's, my belief is that staff should put everything out there to make people aware of what needs to get done. And then let people above us do the cutting. Okay, the first one, I put higher priority on projects that we already have grant funding for, or that city council has approved by resolution to take on. The Lagoon du Nord Bridge replacement, that is one that we are receiving federal funds for. City council did support this a couple years ago, so MSA is the engineer that has been doing the design to date. So we're seeking $100,000 to carry on with additional design. We also have some real estate acquisitions coming up. Towards the bottom, you'll see the schedule above the table I have for 24, 25, and 26. Utility design continues, real estate acquisition, real estate services, any needed permits from the state, and also the state reviews in there. Our target date for construction is 2027. So we do have 100% funding for eligible items capped at 1.127 million. That's per the amendment to the 2023 WSDOT agreement. We have 80% funding for eligible design, which is capped at 107,328. Any approved costs above the cap figures is the responsibility of the city. Non-participating design construction items such as water main design and construction and real estate acquisition is to be paid for by the city. So the funding requests in this capital budget are covering expenses that are non-funded and non-participating. So these are the ones that we have to pay for. So we have currently in the 2024 budget from this year and prior years, a balance of $78,950. We are using that money currently. And for 2025, we're seeking an additional $100,000 to carry on with those efforts. 2027, we're not looking for any additional funding. So the bulk of the work continues for this year and next year and carry over into 2026. Any questions for that one?
Yeah, is there any way that the 100,000 can be split between 25 and 26?
According to the engineer, they would prefer that money be in 2025 because they want to do the bulk of the work, and whatever doesn't get done, it carries into 26. So, and mainly that's the real estate acquisition that they're working.
What do we have to?
At the four corners of the bridges, we need to encroach into private property just because of the approaches, and we also have to gain access because of the water main. We have to move the water main. So we had similar when we did the South Winnebago Boat Bridge on Pirate Island. It was similar acquisition services. So.
All right, I'm not going to stop the flow. So if you have questions along the way, just chime in.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just a general question. This will probably apply to a bunch of other projects too, but are there contingencies on these grants that you're receiving? So there's deadlines that must be meet. Like WSDOT.
The deadline is 2027 construction.
So it's finished, final.
Yeah.
Okay. And I would assume that there's got to be a point of which point of no return, where you start constructing, you got to finish it. You're not going to have half of it.
Well, the city's already committed to this project, a resolution at city council. We had to approve it at council to accept the grant funding.
Okay.
So there's no turning back.
We've kind of jumped in the pool.
Yeah, once this was 80% funding to begin with, and that the DOT got 100% funding, so which is really good. We're also, for the money that we have to pay out for items that are not covered by the WSDOT grant, we're going to submit for the Dane County Bridgeaid grant. So we're gonna maximize our grant opportunities. If we can build a $1.5 million bridge and only end up having 100,000 in city costs, that's pretty good. So. Okay, any other questions? All right, the next item, South Winnequa pavement replacement, that's Brick Road to Bartle Street. The this is number two, as we have secured local road improvement grant funding to help with this. That LRIP amount that we're receiving is $32,320. So our estimated total project cost is $100,010. I'm expecting it to come in less than that. That's why we do the bidding and we see where it's at, but so, you know, we would lump this in with other street work that we're doing next year, but in the bid ad, we do have to advertise it that it's grant funded, so. Any questions for that? Next item is the Nichols Road reconstruction design. We'll let Brad talk about this one, as this is one of the projects he's managing.
So this project was received grant funding through the STVG program. It was due to be constructed in 2026. But we've requested an amendment that is getting voted on by the MPO policy board this evening as we speak. It'll likely pass. I'm about 99% sure it'll pass. That'll push the construction back to 2029. The reason we did this was to align with potential future improvements at city campus. We didn't want to build a brand new road and then rip it up and have construction active right next to it or on it. So this request here is for $2025. The goal is to use leftover funding from this year and supplement it next year to get to 60 to 90% design. The schedule is in front of you on the bottom. Another benefit of this is that we get to extend the amount of capital funding out so that the amount of funding being requested each year is less. It's not so substantial. And we get to align it with the potential civic campus improvements and any other future improvements needed. Things like bus stops and stuff like that. So and there's other funds and full from the Parks Department as well. So basically, this request is for $10,000 additional dollars in 2025 to continue on design efforts.
By delaying it from 26 to 29, are there inflationary concerns? Certainly you have overruns.
Yep, and we've already contacted the MPO about that and DOT. The goal is one step at a time. The amendment has to go through the policy board. Once approved, then it's amended, push our project back to 2029. And then we'll see how things pan out with other awarded projects between 25 and 29. If some of those projects come in under budget and the amount being awarded is not fully dispersed, there's a potential to have an allocation there that you could, the rest of the members of the MPO could apply for. And we could potentially be reimbursed more money or get more grant funding from the TIP for our project, given the fact that it's got inflationary costs and potential to add its in the future.
Okay, moving on, next one. This is for the mill overlay and epoxy paint of South Ridge Road. That's a development that's been kind of stalled. Kitty corner from the current developments at the Monona State Bank. We already have $140,000 approved. That's waiting. Our portion of the project will basically start when that structure is nearly complete. I guess that's anticipated to be next summer. We're in a holding pattern, and the 30,000 additional that we're seeking is strictly due to the increase in prices from the bid market that we had in 2024. So this will be allocated to the TIF and not borrowed with GEO bonds. So it's I believe it's technically not part of the $3.8 million for the GEO borrowing. So we're anticipating to get busy with the city's commitment for the road. late next summer. Okay, moving on, the right of way maintenance, that's the annual that we use for bridge maintenance, street maintenance, curb and gutter and sidewalks. Seeking a total of $300,000. Typically, I think in the past, we've approved $308,000. I just included $2,000 more dollars to address the sidewalks and curb and gutter. This is used for chip sealing, mill and overlay work, spot repair throughout the city. Any questions for this one?
Yeah, just to foreshadow, this might be one to have a few years worth of historic numbers. Because I know this is one that always is the easy one to go, can we do 250?
Oh. So wait, are you asking for like a history?
Yeah, even if you have a few years for at least the committee of the whole to help them understand, like, okay, how much do we normally spend on this area? On a yearly basis, and if we took a dip for a while, then we end up like catch up.
Right.
And just to think that discussion will likely come up because it's a big item without any identified specifics yet.
Yeah. Yeah, there's capital budget history for this particular line item. And I also maintain a spreadsheet of street maintenance. I think that goes all the way back to 2006. So we have adequate history that I can show for projects that were completed with this fund.
It means last year, 300,000 was approved.
That's been about typical, yeah. Okay, moving on, Brad is gonna cover this one. It's the phase 2 of the Public Works Garage building envelope. Brad, you wanna give a history of prior to this?
Yeah, so phase 1, we did a building envelope study, basically looks at the shell of the building and insulation, roofing, siding, gutters. And it was found that we had some fairly significant and obviously known issues in the building with leaks in the roof. The roof leaks like a sieve in many locations. And it's fairly old at this point, about 40 years old. So it's in need of replacement. We have some mold growing in our insulation. So we tried to do this project in one project and include the HVAC improvements in the building that were also needed fairly badly, and we couldn't fit it all in one budget. Obviously, this is a fairly significant line item. So we did the HVAC improvements first. That was a total of about 60 grand for those improvements, and now we're coming back to finish the job with replacing the roof, replacing any damaged insulation, replacing damaged siding, doing some general upgrades to gutters and downspouts to shed water away from the building, adding gutters on one half of the building. The eastern half does not currently have gutters on it, so it just pours water and snow and ice out onto the operations yard, the Public Works garage yard. So that would get improved, and then we'd add some ice damming, what they call melt wires, to the rooftop to make sure that we don't have any issues with ice slides. It would be a safety issue. So this has all of that in it, plus some contingency. And it also includes on-site observation and administration of the project, and bid letting assistance from our consultant.
The majority of the items that we're presenting this year were on the 5-year capital budget last year, the previous year. Brad mentioned phase 1, that work was done in 2023. That came through this committee back then for approval. So
So the question of that 1.5 million, where's the bulk of the expense going? And if you're replacing gutters and siding, that's not the word, but so.
It's a rooftop. Yeah, I mean, it's a steel roof. The replacement is a 40-year to 50-year replacement type of product and material. We're also adding insulation. to it. So the existing roof actually stays on and it's a ridge. It has ridges and valleys in it, in the metal. And the goal would be to fill it in with a foam replacement or foam insulation and then lay a new overlayment over the top of that.
And that
Which-
overlay would be steel.
The overlay would not be steel, it would be a composite material like polymer, which has no seams. No bolts, no perforations, it's one sheet of product. So
So it's physically a sheet, it's not
it's,
sprayed on.
it can be both. We haven't chosen exactly what, but the product, the difference in products. Pricing is not substantial. It's basically what you prefer. And if you look at the rooftop over here at the school building, when they just redid theirs, it'll be a lot like that.
This is also, you mentioned the solar array.
Yep.
Removal, replacement. Is replacement getting rid of what's there and putting new, expanding it?
Yes.
Or just taking what you took off and putting it back?
No, so we don't own the arrays, the materials, the products that are up there. They're owned by a third party. They rent our rooftop.
Oh.
We use the power in the building and we pay them back through a renewable energy credit program. That's based on what we used in terms of kilowatt hours. The rooftop array is towards the end of its useful life. Even though it was only installed in 2013, it was never engineered properly. And it's an old product, it's kind of experimental at the time, to be honest. So the goal of the city would be to remove the array or have the array removed at the owner's cost. And then in future years, commit to some type of a larger product or project. Maybe with some partners like MG&E, for instance, but
So that's not part of this.
that's not part of this. No, that's down the line.
Any other questions?
How many square feet is that building?
The 20,000,
20,000. I just had a new roof put on that building. Which is 4,000. Cost me $32,000. Somebody called Duralast. The sheet.
okay,
I'll send you a link to it. You can look at it.
This has to be bid, so we can't direct hire, so.
you're talking about the product though?
Yeah.
I can send it over to our consultant and see what they have to say about it.
It does have a 20-year warranty.
The product that we're looking at is 35 years warranty.
Good info to have for the RFP that will be coming in the future.
I think Brad already has it. I think when we presented this in 23, 22. Did you give us that product name back then already?
No, that was a different product.
Okay.
This is the Badger Roofing out of Marshall,
Okay,
somewhere over there. Who did it?
See what they say.
yep.
Yeah. At this point, it doesn't hurt because we haven't put anything out for bid.
No, the project manual is essentially complete. We just had to switch out the specifications for it.
So we could, the timing's right to at least look
Yeah,
at.
worth a try.
Yep, to look at. All right.
This was passed through the facilities committee. I
Yeah.
didn't put that in there, but they have already looked at it. They didn't really have any questions about it.
Yeah, they might not be aware of the option.
Yeah. No, if, when you're looking into it, if it does seem like a worthy option, we can always look back to that group.
When I bought the building in 91, that the same material was on the roof, 91. So it lasts longer than 20 years.
Awesome. All right.
Okay, moving on, the next item, continuing on with the additional engineering for South Town Drive. Street improvements. We're gonna be focusing on some traffic counts, looking at some different patterns, test patterns, at the roundabout. Once the Strand has more information in 2025, we'll invite them to a Public Works Committee meeting, kind of go over some engineering recommendations. But the bulk of the work is going to be replacing the street from the Beltline ramps, the concrete porch, and replace that with asphalt, and then do a mill and overlay of the balance of the asphalt with some possible. I've asked them to look at the roundabout to see if there's anything we can do to make it better. We had a lot of complaints about the navigation of the roundabout, the striping, they're a single lane halfway through, and then it turns into 2 lanes of travel. So as part of this engineering, I've asked them to just review that roundabout operation, so that's gonna be part of what they're gonna do in 2025.
And from the ramp going south, that's the chunk of road that's just been pothole haven, right?
We put the mastic patch in that last year, and that's a pretty durable product. Doesn't peel out, doesn't get damaged from the plows, so it's about a 3, 4, 5 year Band-Aid. We've had this stuff on Thermite Drive 3 years now, and that's holding pretty good. So, but it does need to be addressed, and part of what Strand is doing, is communicating with the DOT and the county just to figure out exactly where the ownership lines are. There's some portions of that area that I feel is DOT responsibility. But we want them to identify what those lines are before we dive in.
Start doing the work.
Yeah.
But they're paying for the work. Most important, yeah.
Okay, next item. This is the item that I mentioned is related to the Topgolf project, the West Broadway Frontage Road intersection realignment and other improvements. The ask is for $895,000. It would be covered by TIF. So if assuming Topgolf is going to go through, because just by the talk that I hear from Doug, higher than us, people higher than us. So PD has also received complaints about the lighted intersection that aligns with Hoboken. On our side is the Broadway frontage road, and on their side is Hoboken. There's vehicles that are coming in the exit lane. There's vehicles exiting on the incoming lanes. So the goal, one of the things that the engineer is going to look at is reconfiguring this intersection with anticipation of Topgolf being approved to realign it. Get rid of the curve and make it a standard T intersection, right in, right out. If the city takes over the WPS lighted intersection, you'd have the majority of the traffic coming in on Fraser by Coles, and at WPS, internal movements, right in, right out, to make it safer at that intersection. But a lot of things have to fall in place with the development agreement, but they're pretty confident that this will go forward. So that said, that's why I'm bringing this forward, because they want to have the city improvements done as they're wrapping up the construction of Topgolf, and have the roads taken care of, so we don't have to come back later when the traffic is heavy and shut things down and redo. So again, the goal is to reconfigure that intersection, mill and overlay, Broadway frontage road and Gashult, get things done properly and time it along with the opening of Topgolf. So, any questions on that one? The next item kind of goes a little bit hand in hand with what Brad presented for the building improvements. This one, I'm lumping together with a small section of road, the Winnick Drive, which is the far north end of the city, where the curve is coming off Monona Drive. There's a little stub up there called, I'm sorry, Winnick Road. There's a stub up there called Winnick Drive. It's a short road that is on our road classification list. I think there's 5 driveways on it. It's in rough shape. The road bed is deteriorated to the point where it does need to be replaced. The majority of that section of road is alligator cracked, and that when you have alligator cracking, that just goes to show that the road bed is shot. So we have requesting money to complete engineering for the road bed and new asphalt. And also, I'd like to replace the asphalt down at the DPW garage. That asphalt, I believe, dates back to original. We've done some repairs to it over time. But it's I think it's past its life. It's pretty beat. So I guess the goal is to take care of the yard, get the building improvements done, and when all that's done, then the DPW garage is set for another 30-40 years. So we'd like to lump those together and take care of some engineering next year. And the work for this would be done in 2026. Any questions on that?
Someday we're probably gonna need water going into San Damiano Park. Would that come from Monona Drive? Would that come from Winnick Drive?
That'd be up to the Friends of San Damiano to figure out, and the Parks Department, but I believe the initial discussion was Winnick Drive.
Okay.
And that'd be City of Madison water there. So.
Okay.
Because our main only goes up to Winnick Road, and then we stop.
Yep. Okay. Next item. We're asking for 10 grand for Metro bus stop improvements, and basically this is concrete pads at the bus stops and any associated signage. If we need to buy any trash cans, which I don't think the thought is there right now. But if the need comes up, we would buy a few with this money as well. I don't know a whole lot about the Metro stop locations, other than I believe the city now has a contract with Metro that's going to begin in the first quarter of 2025. So.
That was my question, is if you knew where they were. The other thing, I'm wondering, shouldn't we wait and see how the bus system works? I don't know. I suppose that's all been decided and doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that wasn't the charge of this committee. The transit committee and city council, or I'm not sure if planning about that. I don't say that.
But I think it'd be fair to say that and Nancy Gross chimed in, she would be much more knowledgeable about this, but I think it would be fair to say that routes have been a major discussion. And
good.
Meaning they have settled and solidified a route, and with that stops. And now I know part of that conversation was stops that already had a stop and appropriate items wouldn't need improvements, but there might be some that need improvements.
Okay.
And I think there was some like ongoing discussion regarding minimize the improvements until you kind of get going.
Yeah.
To determine, is there some adjustments that might end up getting made? And so I think that's where there is a little hesitancy of like, well, don't dump in hundreds of thousands of dollars. But 10,000 might be like, okay, yeah, we got a poor pad here, and then.
That's what it is. Yeah, and we would do that with our own crew, wherever we need to go pad. So.
Something that could be easily undone if.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Not shelters everywhere, I think is the easiest way to put it. Like, that was one of the comments I know earlier, of like, well, let's not invest in a bunch of shelters everywhere until we know.
if staff has any say in that shelter discussion, Jeff can tell you here,
It'll just be a roof.
we prefer not.
Won't be
having
last.
I think within 3 months of us putting that shelter in, we had to replace the glass already on it.
Yeah, we've had a handful of destruction repairs to that shelter and so. I would hope around the neighborhood to be able. to see
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Next item, this is an item that the mayor bumped last year that this committee approved, so it's a good example of things getting, pushed back after it leaves the committee. This is a road reconstruction project, in the South Twenty-Watha Trail neighborhood. The price tag, estimated price tag is $3,049,000. Everything is kind of at a standstill. We are scheduled to have a public information meeting in September, I believe. You'll notice that, and send out invite letters. We have to do assessments for a small portion of this. Those folks have already been notified. But we've been sitting idle. So if it passes the mayor's review, then we are full steam ahead, because we're assuming that city council will pass it. But, you know, we have funding to get us through this year. So if we have to put the brakes on, it's not gonna be money wasted, so. But we're asking to get this one done next year, 2025. Any questions on that one? All right, the next one, is Wallace Avenue Street Improvements, Engineering. This is a small section of road that if you were to drive it north of Nichols, past the MGD substation, you'll see exactly why this is on the list. We have a small section of cast iron water main, that we've had numerous breaks on. The roadbed, is shot, by evidence of all the alligator cracking there. And we did replace the asphalt, I think back in 2012 or 13, for a spot repair. And that just goes to show how bad the roadbed is, because that asphalt is shot already. So we would do, cast iron water main replacement, from Nichols, through the intersection of Valerie. Replacement of the roadbed in the same area, spot curb replacement, sanitary sewer repair as needed. And then we would do a full depth mill and overlay spot roadbed repair from Valerie to St. Teresa. So next year, we're just targeting engineering for this. Any questions for that one?
Consider a relatively small amount, but would you be able to make the argument saying, here's how many times we had to go out, and this is how many man hours it cost? And
yeah, we do have that data. Jeff and his team keeps track of the water main break locations and occurrences.
Yeah.
And if need be, we can dig up costs for that. Next item is the traffic data preliminary review. So the additional sheets that were in front of you when you came in, I printed out new ones for you, because at least in my paper packet, they were blown up to the point where you needed 4 sheets of paper to read 1 page. I don't want to dive too deep into the data, because if we get the traffic data preliminary review approved for 20 grand, we're going to talk about this data in depth this year with the engineer. But on my packet, I did highlight some information. You've heard from residents in the Wallace Gordon area in the past year and a half. Brad took numerous traffic counts in this area. And what we found based on the traffic count is that really nothing needs to be done to address speed. 85% of the traffic is traveling 26 or 27 miles an hour, which is very little. Yeah, you just like any other street, you're gonna have your outlier for a max speed. One of them occurred on a Saturday, Monday, Friday, summertime, after school. So I mean, there's really no common theme here as far as speeding during school hours. But I guess what I wanted to point out to you mostly was the fact that according to the data that we've collected, there's not a problem speeding on this street. So, flipping a little bit further back, you'll see data for Bridge Road and Frostwoods. That was a recent discussion that we had. I think when Alderman Beulah was, this is last meeting that he chaired for us. That data, however, is a little different. Through our traffic data report, 85% of the traffic is traveling either 32 or 33 miles an hour. That's a big deal because our speed limit is 25. That section has seen speeds 57 miles an hour, 58 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. So when the complaint came in from the one resident this year, and we have had complaints in past years about speeding, it's validated. The data that Brad collected shows that there is an issue here. So I think if our funding does get approved, you know, that would be probably one of the main areas we look at is addressing speed on Bridge Road and Frostwoods. We are doing traffic counts on Timberlake Drive as we speak. That would most likely be added to the review effort in 2025. So just wanted to give you that snapshot of what we've done to date to show you Brad has been working on this. Now we just need to take it to the next step and get some engineering dollars to help us out. Any questions for that one?
We don't have to belabor the discussion. What exactly do they do in the review of the data?
Well, it's meetings with you. It's man hours at the computer. I imagine, based on the things that were talked about at this committee, when we talked about it previously, you all threw out items such as moving the curb, adding sidewalks, speed humps. Those things cost dollars for engineering effort. So they're not cheap. They work at about 150 to 200 bucks an hour.
But is it the analysis to review the data collected to make a suggestion on what can be done for an engineering fix? Or is it just to summarize the data that's?
No, it's to review the data. Come up with draft concepts, meet with you all, meet with city council. Because if we're moving curbs, it's turning into a bigger project. So, we don't have engineers in-house on staff to do this, so we have to hire everything else.
So the idea of rather than us engineering at the table here and going, let's put a speed hump here.
Right. You want an official.
It would be that, it would be hiring the consultant to look at this data, come up with some ideas, present those ideas here and the council to then say, here are your options. What do you want to do?
And to see if they want to move forward, because then after this, it would probably kick it into a project phase. So, but we've had, since we striped the road with bike lanes, we've had numerous complaints about cars driving in the parking lane, cars passing on the right, bikes being cut off, speeding, issues with people crossing the street at the park. So there's been a lot of complaints for Bridge Road at least. So,
A lot of pedestrians on Bridge Road as well.
That park is a magnet.
It's very busy.
Like it is a very, very busy park after that improvement.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed at the number. It's busy nonstop.
Everybody loves a zip line.
Yeah, that's it. Lions is
Yeah.
like the biggest magnet. I mean, people come in like van loads there. So I mean, which is a good problem to have, right? Like you want a city park being used. Yeah, the road's an issue. This is fantastic to see the data that you guys are getting. I think been helped speak to this committee over the last couple of years, trying to use a little bit more data to help. I mean, this group's always used some data to drive some decision making, but I know like we've mixed that with some opinion over the years, and I think it's been helpful to kind of realign ourselves to use some data to make some of those decisions.
At least with average daily traffic, and that's what we can do in house, but from here. You know, we, if it goes further, we turn it over to the traffic engine. They're the ones with all the expertise. So.
Awesome, that's good.
Okay, moving on. Right of way tree planting program, this is in the budget every year, 25,000. Jeff uses this money to plant new terrace trees. Wherever we've taken trees out, he'll review the area to see if another tree can be planted there. This budget gets used every year, so he does a nice job of using the full 25 grand. Any questions on that one? That would be it for the general fund projects. Is there any questions on that before we slide into the utilities? Okay. Moving into the water utility for projects, we have the well 2 pump and column maintenance. This is according to the DNR code on the frequency cycle that they have us do this maintenance. Last year that we completed it was 2015, and we're seeking $45,000 to do this work. Similar to the work that we did this year at well 3. Pull the entire pump, inspect the aquifer, inspect the pipe and the shafts and the motor, replace what needs to be replaced, and then put it back in the ground and test it and get it back online. So this 45,000 is based off the cost that it took to do well 3 this year. So, any questions for that one? Next item would be well 4 design and drafting wellhead protection plans for all of our wells. Well 4 design, that's driven by the City Hall project that City Council and the ad hoc committee is currently going through. There's been direction from City Council that eventually well 1 is going to be taken offline. So before that happens, establish well 4, and that is at the Waterman Way Park. The DNR is reviewing current site plan submittals for that right now. Basically gaining their a renewed approval. They approved it back in, I think it was 2002 timeframe when they approved that site. So part of this request for 148,000 is to draft wellhead protection plans. Any new wells that are approved automatically have to have a wellhead protection plan. So as part of that, we want to get a protection plan for wells 2 and 3. Some work related to a CSM and survey. Some work related to PSC assistance for a water rate case review. And then 120,400 for the well and pump house design. So that would be the work completed in 2025. And then in 2026, it would be construction. So it'd be coming back next year at this time, looking for about $2.6 million to construct well 4. Again, this is pretty much at the directive from City Council, based on what they have in their plans for City Hall here. Any questions for that one? Next item would be repainting of the large water tower. We did the small one a few years ago. The large one was last repainted in 2006, and about every 20 years is when you have to do it again. We noticed last year on our inspection that there are some areas where the paint is failing, and which indicates a time that they need to paint the water tower. So Strand is our engineer for anything related to the water towers. The engineering cost would be 60,000 that we're looking for in 2025. 2026 is when painting would occur on the inside and outside, and right now that estimate is 540,000. And this is, when it comes to the utility projects, that's falls under a different funding category with revenue bonds, looked at a little differently than the geo bonds. And I think that's where the mayor has the limit, specifically with overall general obligation. So, any questions for the water tower? The next item is for the fire hydrant valve replacement program. That's a reoccurring program, still replacing bad hydrants that are in the system, old hydrants in the system. And we've been requesting $50,000. We use that to buy the hydrants, any associated parts. And some of this money might go to labor, a backhoe operator from Capital Underground, help install the hydrants. We hope to take on some of that work in the future, but this is something that we typically hire out for assistance. Any questions for that one? Yeah. All right, we'll move into stormwater, and the first two items will be the Brad show here. Explain the stormwater projects.
All right, so I think I came earlier this year, we talked about phase 2 Reach 64 project. General scope is to add an underground wet detention pond in the old Kelly Place right away between McKenna Road and Midmore Road. We have about 60 feet wide of right of way. I want to say it's 300 feet long. This project would essentially take up the majority of that space with an underground detention chamber. This would be a hard bottom chamber. We were told by the DNR we are not allowed to infiltrate in this area, given the type of runoff that's coming from mainly urban landscape, things like Monona Drive, golf course, streets. So they require hard bottom surface in this device. There is a bypass structure going in to bypass larger storm events. So we don't have backups in the system on that 60-inch stormwater main. It's our largest watershed and our biggest polluter in the city. It's our worst rated outfall that the water comes out of and outlets into the Wikiwak Bay. So this is a much needed project. This will get us the biggest chunk so far in terms of reductions of pollutants regulated by the DNR for our MS4 permit. And it will also be the largest funded project. Dane County has just approved reallocating more funding to their urban water quality grant program. So the number that I put in here is not actually accurate. The total that we would be eligible for would be $1.15 million in grant funding for a project of 1.86 in estimated cost. So we are awaiting our award letters. I'm knock on wood. Hopefully we get the full amount that we requested. We already know from the DNR that we've been not approved, but our rating, our scoring for our grant application was in the top 10 for our region for eligible projects for their urban non-point source grant. So hopefully we can move forward with this project. I know it's a large project, but it's, you know, we have a plan in the city to address stormwater pollutant reductions every 5 years with a substantial capital investment. Well, it's been about that long, and so we're in that time frame for the next capital investment. So, and this kind of aligns with the stormwater quality management plan update that we're doing right now this year. That's been grant funded as well. And then the renderings that I put in front of you tonight are what the surface of this right of way might look like. It was brought up at city council when I presented the scope of this project last year. That it'd be you know, they're hoping for something like a pathway or some type of a connection point between Midmore and McKenna. Given that this is a right of way, they would rather not see it taken over by the neighboring properties if it is city property. We also have to be able to access this device in every single manhole that goes into the structure so that we can maintain, inspect and clean as needed. So this concept would we'd be able to move boulders out of the way, get our trucks onto and maintenance vehicles onto hard surface or hardscape pathway and access all of the manholes for the structure.
What are you anticipating for the maintenance schedule?
These types of devices, because they have a bypass structure and they have an initial capture chamber, are usually 10+ years before you actually have to go in and seriously remove sediment or organics. The depth of the water table inside this device is gonna be around 3 feet, so, and the height is around 8 feet. Total height, so it's a deep structure and it's got a lot of capacity inside of it, so we shouldn't have to really address too much.
60-inch pipe coming into it?
Yeah, not 60, there's a bypass structure, so we're only gonna bypass anything larger than like a 5-year event. So the 1, 2, and 5 will go into the structure. Anything larger than that will be bypassed around. Because it's just too much water to take on inside that structure. There's baffle chambers, and the amount of backflow and prevention of water going in would back up the 60-inch pipe and cause overflows back beyond it.
And that gets you. Is it their pollution reduction goal met by this?
No,
We've got,
for the city,
we've got at least one more big project after this.
if not two. Yeah, it depends. We're waiting on future developments with modeling improvements and different things that you can get reductions for. Our leaf collection model right now, the one that was accepted by the DNR, was right before, of course, that they updated it to accept more single family residential areas in the city. It was originally only medium density residential, now it's like all residential. And so in the stormwater quality plan updates that we're doing at the moment, we're gonna get much more reductions out of just the leaf collection credit. And then if we increase street sweeping, things like that, these things can kind of incrementally add up. So we're hoping to be somewhere around 80% of our reduction goals by the end of this project. And then trying to meet the rest of that 20% of what we need to get to. So.
Yeah. That's great. The renderings help because it's hard to imagine a 60 by 300 treatment system. That's huge. Yeah.
It is a large right of way, right? So, yeah, this is
the idea, well, this is like a little sign that explains what's underneath and how it all works, like.
Yeah, as a requirement of the grants too.
Yeah, which is, I'm trying to envision what the heck this thing, to me, it just sounds like mosquito heaven. I'm sure it's not, so.
It's similar to what we did at Stonebridge, but long instead of square and a little bit deeper. Underground, so it's.
Nothing's exposed. I mean, mosquitoes really want to be in there, they can be, but they're not gonna be able to get out very easily.
You're safe.
Then they're gonna get flushed.
That sounds like.
Yeah.
That's a lot of standing water. But your hard bottom now.
We call these the tennis ball capture devices, because it's amazing the stuff that ends up in them.
Yeah.
Who's the vendor?
What's that?
Who's the vendor manufacturer for the CDS?
Stormcraft, thank you, yeah.
Stormcraft?
It's the same supplier that we had for Stonebridge Park. Yeah.
What's their advertised removal rates?
Depends on it totally depends on their devices.
What about this one?
It's fairly efficient, but because of no infiltration, it's not as efficient. So TSS is very efficient. Total phosphorus, it's not as much.
Right.
But the fact that we're digging it deep enough for a 3-foot water table helps a lot with phosphorus.
Does that eventually fall out of suspension?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the idea, it's just slow the water down. So you'll get particulate removal,
Yeah,
but not dissolve. That'll move through.
yeah.
But that's what they're designed for, is just to take the solids away, big stuff.
Dissolved is, it really requires treated capacity, just massive
Filters.
capacity and filters. And we don't have green space,
No.
so.
But the catch is that that's what creates the algal blooms.
Yeah.
It's dissolved.
They dissolve, right?
Phosphate.
Really, that's a preventative measure, so it's education outreach, like getting people, don't put your leaves in the streets, because if they do, it creates the T, and the T is the dissolved P, so phosphorus, so.
So the DNR did not allow infiltration because of the high water table?
And because of the amount of potential oil and grease.
Right,
See that it drains part of the Monona Golf Course. But that City of Madison, can they contribute some way?
That doesn't work that way.
It'd be nice if it would, but yeah.
We take a lot of their stormwater
We do.
all the way from East Town.
The Alice neighborhood, Buckeye, Cops Ave, the entire industrial park on the east side of Highway 51 drains to the city of Monona. So it's,
Lucky us.
yeah, we're downstream, we get to be on the lake.
Yeah. So, yeah. Awesome. Sounds like a great project.
Next one, Brad?
Interlake and Gishel, storm basins, these are detention basins or bioretention basins. One located on Broadway Avenue and one located in the industrial park on Gishel. The basins are in a state of disrepair. The bottom of the Interlake Basin is an old concrete lattice type of structure. And they really don't use that anymore, and it's cracked and broken. It's very difficult for Jeff and his crew to get onto and clean and maintain that structure. The gabion is in a state of semi-disrepair. The metal is pretty bent and warped. Floods have heaved and moved a lot of the structure. There's some erosion on the shoreline, things like that. So it's about time to get those replaced. The Gestalt structure in particular is an interesting one. It was constructed for the industrial park after Highway 12 was moved to where it is today and Broadway became Broadway. And the industrial park became an industrial park, and then they platted it and everything, and they laid out all parcels. And at the time, the city and the DNR and the Army Corps of Engineers worked together to create that basin. And what it really was a levee structure to hold floodwaters back from the conservancy and Upper Mud Lake and the Yamar River. At the same time, it was a spill prevention structure, so that if there was an industrial spill in the industrial park, you could put down a levee gate, a big metal gate, and hold the spill within the basin. Over time, it just became essentially what is a stormwater basin, really. The levee gate is not exercised. There's no plan for it to be exercised. There's some language in the original agreement with the Army Corps, but that's about as far as it went. The fact that it is not considered a drainage district, but technically it is a drainage district because that is a regional structure that serves specifically just those parcels draining to it. Is something that we want to address. It should be considered a drainage district in that area, and there should be accessible maintenance costs to those parcels that use it. The other thing that's happening since 2004 and then 2014, when the DNR updated their requirements for pollutant reduction on properties that redevelop or are newly developed, is that those parcels that drain to it can use it as part of their reduction requirements. And then therefore they don't have to put a lot of stuff on site, like detention basins and whatnot. Well, if that's the case, the city maintains it solely at the city's cost. It seems as though there should be some type of a way to assess those costs back on those property owners. It's super overgrown. It's been silted in. There's gotta be close to 3 to 4 feet of sediment accumulated in the bottom of that basin. The levee gate needs to be addressed. We need to contact the Corps of Engineers and DNR and see what they require in there. And for the future. And then we need to create some sort of accessible pathway, whether it's a bridge or some way to get to the levee. To perform our inspections, to get to the outfall, to get to the gate and actually maintain the basin and the berms. Cut down overgrown brush and weeds and invasives and stuff like that. So
Right.
that's engineering. The final engineering would be in 2025. We would construct in 2026. We're looking into whether any of this is grant eligible, but we believe it should be. So that's that project.
If not, would it be special assessment eligible?
We would have to, I believe, get that approved by code to assess, similar to how we do dredging.
Which is something the engineers would help us with. Yeah.
Because I know some of the stuff that's gone on in the industrial park. We've talked about meeting their stormwater needs. And we've specifically talked about the water is being captured here.
Yeah,
I mean,
and there's no TIF over there too, so that
No.
it's
yeah,
we're looking for a creative way, like creating a drainage district then allows us to fund the maintenance.
Right.
And it does it through assessing the property owners that use it. So,
Right, last item for the stormwater is our annual storm main repair program. $35,000 here. We use this to replace old rusted out storm mains. Kind of example, this year would be the storm main that we replaced that runs through the yard of the Winnequa Park. Money from this account pays for that as part of our stormwater system. Replacing inlets, things like that. Any work that we can do ourselves, we will, but we'll use this money to pay for materials. So this appears in the capital budget every year for this kind of work. Any final questions for stormwater before we move into sanitary sewer? Okay, first item in sanitary sewer is the United Park lift station. This would be phase 2 of the lift station upgrades. Phase 1 is actually happening right now. They're working at the Midmore lift station, beginning to do the force main there. When they're done at Midmore, they're moving to front of the mayor's house on Winnequa Road. Those 2 stations are being converted to submersible pumping stations, seeking $65,000 for next year, so we can move on to the Oneida Park lift station. The wet well at Oneida Park was constructed around the 1953 timeframe. The dry can was added in 1982 timeframe. The issue with the dry can that we want to replace and put submersible pumps in is it's considered a confined space deep into the ground. With the submersibles, those pumps would be out of there. We'd abandon the dry can. Put submersible pumps in the wet well and have the control box on top, similar to what we're doing at Midmore and Winnequa Road this year. So planning for phase 2 design in 2025. Any questions for that one? Next item in sanitary sewer is the annual funding, $30,000, similar to stormwater sanitary sewer repair program. For emergency lining, emergency repairs in the mains, any work needed in the manholes, replacements, things like that. And the final one for the sanitary sewer, we did not have funding this year. I want to bring back the engineering of the sanitary sewer system, looking for I&I. We use MSA for this, Greg Baruki and his team. So we're hoping to have another lining project in 2026. But we want to use the 25,000 to complete the next set of review. Point out the areas that need to be addressed and put together a bit. Any questions for the projects that were presented? Okay, we'll move into equipment. I've asked Jeff to be here tonight. We have 4 pieces of equipment that I'm seeking to replace. The first one I have rated as our priority 1 is our bucket truck. But before we get into that, you'll see a snapshot of the equipment that we have for not the 5 years in the current capital budget, but this is from 2030 to 2034. So if you look what we have on page 1 for the next 5 years, it doesn't end. It carries through to 2034. And these are big ticket items, and we base our replacement program on the national model by APWA. This points allocation system and rating program was actually approved by this Public Works Committee. Leslie might remember that. It was modified by the Public Works Committee and it was approved by City Council. We've been using this program for about 13 years, 12 years, something like that. So diving into request 1, we're seeking to replace the boom truck. Jeff, you want to give a little background of the history of what's been going on with the bucket truck lately, and then explain the unique feature in the price quote that we got?
Yeah, so our bucket truck, of course, as you would imagine, do anything we need to get in the air, work at lights, your city hall parking lots, things like that, all of our tree trimming, whether planned or emergency removals, things of that nature. As of lately, the truck has been a real pain, to put it lightly. It's broke down on us multiple times, had to be towed. The fuel system has had a complete rebuild by Ford. This diesel engine in this truck was one of the first ones that, when they kind of started redoing the designs for meeting all the emission standards, a lot of people had a lot of problems with it, to say the least. So looking to move on with the new truck, we are asking for a gas engine truck, just because diesels have continued to have problems as they've tried to re-engineer them, where gas has stayed very reliable. With this truck, did ask them to provide an option for the electric lift option. So this would be something that you would see like with all of the MG&E lift trucks that are out, where the truck drives under the engine power when parked and is only being used for the lift. That all runs off an electric battery. So the truck doesn't sit in high idle the entire time. So obviously leading to fuel savings and fume reduction and all of that. Was given a little bit of information from them based on that. They believe that you can reduce your fuel up to 2,000 gallons per year just by idling for by not idling and running the PTO, but by having the electric lift, so we believe it's worth the money. It is expensive, it's not cheap, but you know, I think the city has talked about sustainability things and of that nature, and this would help achieve part of that by not running very much fuel during the workday from this.
And Jeff, I think the vendor mentioned that if something were to happen with the battery system, the truck provides the safety net, the backup system.
Correct. There is a traditional PTO option on it. So if, just say the worst case scenario, you had a huge storm go through where you were running this day and night for, 20 hours straight, and the battery couldn't handle that long, you could just run it off of the gas if needed for the lift. So you wouldn't get let down by a dead battery. So
The battery just recharged as the vehicle runs then, or do you have to?
no, it is a plug-in.
So as we would, if this is approved here and approved by city council, we would proceed, the goal would be to proceed purchasing the truck and the upfit from Custom Truck in Union Grove. They're the most local supplier for a specialized truck like this.
Part of the reason when I reached out to some of the companies around the state that build these trucks, why I like their proposal the best is they're a national company who then does build these trucks, specifically these ones local here in southern Wisconsin. They buy enough trucks from all the manufacturers that they could deliver this coming spring on a fall order versus all the other ones. We're talking about like a middle of 2026 delivery. So this would allow us to move forward kind of in a more traditional way of being able to get the vehicle, sooner, but rather than waiting for the next year and a half.
Yes. So in with the packet, we have Ron's inspection sheet as points total of 36. And according to our program, it qualifies for immediate replacement, assuming passage by committee and council. Have the price quote that receipt is also included in the packet. Is there any other questions on this one before we move on to the next item? Okay. Next item, this is an item that the Public Works Committee removed. I think it was about 4 years ago. It's the 2007 John Deere loader. I believe at that time, Mr. Stolper, who was on the committee, felt that we should keep it a little longer. We invested 10 grand into the tires at that time. We're bringing it back to see if we can get it passed here at committee and city council to replace. We're looking at a cost of $257,500. The 4-year delay caused about a $21,000 price increase, and then you add in 10,000 for the tires. So we could have got this vehicle for a little bit cheaper a few years ago, but Ron's inspection sheet is has a points total of 33. It does qualify for immediate replacement. Pointing out the maintenance cost since 2012, $16,744. It'll be 18 years old next year. This is a workhorse for the department. They use it for snow plowing. They use it for lifting items off flatbed trucks, dirt, rock. Jeff, anything else that you want to add for the loader here?
No.
Okay. Any questions on that? We also have the proposal that you received in the packet for you.
Upon replacement, do the older vehicles go up for auction? Then what happens to that?
This one will be traded in. The ones that we don't get decent value on trading for, we'll put in auction. A lot of the smaller vehicles go to auctions. The bucket truck, was there a trading value on that one, or is that auction?
They did not provide one. Did something that we could ask. They didn't know. trucks
Yeah.
also, so I mean, they could ask it if it didn't seem like a very good amount. Lots of stuff has got pretty good price now.
Something like this loader, you know, a lot of smaller private companies usually buy up these older used pieces of equipment. When we have them for municipalities and the community relies on them, you tend to get rid of them when there's value left in the vehicle, so. That's why we're bringing it forward here, and again, it's 18 years old, next year. The next item, 41 years old next year. It's, we're seeking the replacement of the 1984 job site air compressor. We're looking at $30,000 to replace this. Jeff, you want to add any information about that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously it can use anything, any air tools on any site. Parks also borrows it for winterizing shelters, things of that nature. We use it when we're cleaning out our storm basins, and late this summer when we do all of our large storm basin cleaning, we'll definitely use it because we'll have to air up plugs due to the high water levels to be able to pump them down and lose loads. Things like that. Getting to where Ron's having a hard time getting parts for it. I think he just had to go to Europe to get a part for it because it's getting sold.
Ron didn't actually get it.
Be fair, via the internet.
We would have all gone then.
Flying to Sweden.
He may not have come back.
Yeah.
Nah, Ron doesn't like travel.
Yeah, that's right.
So the points on this is the 52 because of the age, and it qualifies for replacement. It's just time. I think one of the crew mentioned that some of the accessories are quite heavy with the old unit like this, and the modern stuff is much
better.
Last item, for the capital budget. Replacing Brad's vehicle. He currently uses the 2012 Chevy Colorado. I have two prices here, option A and option B. The option A is a Ford Maverick XLT all-wheel drive. It would be purchased under the state contract, and the price is around $33,000. Brad is open to driving a hybrid pickup truck. The other option would be to get the standard Ford F-150 XL four-wheel drive package for around $47,000. So I put both prices in there so this committee and city council can see. In this case, it would probably be okay to purchase a hybrid vehicle. Brad uses the vehicle pretty much on a daily basis, checking out stormwater issues on development sites, and also overseeing the projects that we have in the Public Works Department. So has a points rating of 24, which it does qualify for replacement. The cycle is 7 to 10 years for this type of truck. Ours will be 13 years old next year. And again, this would be purchased through Ewald under the state contract. So that would be it for equipment. Any questions on the equipment budget or anything else related to budget? So I guess, Brian, if keeping a recommendation.
Yeah, usually it's a motion for a recommendation from this committee for council to approve the. For recommendation to move.
For recommendation to approve the capital projects and equipment as presented.
Motion.
A second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussions or comments that people have, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item has been approved. Any highlights from the Public Works and Utility Operations report?
the report, no updates to the report that I had in the packet. Did provide the second quarter data for the measurables that the crew, Brad, Jeff, and Jeremy. Starting this year, we've been tallying up some of the more key pieces of information that we do in our department. With the operations report, I have that spreadsheet just to kind of give you some idea of the amount of stuff or some examples of things that we do. So I'll continue to present this with my operations report as I get the information, so.
We will likely be meeting in September.
We will, operating budget.
And it. Hopefully, packet wise for that one, because it will be important that you've at least seen it before you show up. If you can just hold those.
Well, maybe we'll hand deliver them somehow.
We'll either have people come pick them up or we'll give them to your house. We won't rely on mail.
At least
Yeah.
just to deliver them.
They're always on the belt line now.
Yeah,
Right.
probably.
At certain business in town or.
So that way, make sure you at least get a chance to just orient yourself to the operating budget. Don't feel like you have to read every little detail. There'll likely be 3 different budgets.
Oh, right.
The idea is that we're reviewing a budget in the anticipation that a referendum didn't pass. A budget, if it passed and we continue to operate as we have historically, roughly a 1% increase. And then one that is a little bit more favorable increase.
It'll all be on one spreadsheet though, similar to what you've seen in the past. And then I'll have the narratives completed. But I will probably complete the narratives based on the 1%. Yeah. Like we have historically.
All right, we need a motion for adjournment. Second. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Thank
Opposed? Thank you guys all for coming tonight.
Thank you. See you, Nancy.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thanks, everybody.